Hey guys, welcome back. 1 Kings chapter 4 today. I can't wait to talk to you about the highest point in Solomon's kingdom. There's just something about us. We love the highest point. We want to climb that mountain. We want to get that view. Well, this is the highest point in Solomon's kingdom. Let's find out what it was and how he got there. Listen in.
Welcome to Everyday Truth with Kurt Skelly. We believe the Bible is true and relevant to everyone, everywhere, every day. If today's conversation is a help to you, take a moment to leave a review or share it with a friend. Thanks for listening. Now, let's join Kurt for today's episode.
Hey friends, welcome back to today's episode in chapter 4 of the book of 1 Kings, talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And sometimes when we talk about the good, bad, and ugly, as it refers to the kings of the northern and southern kingdoms, we can talk about one king being good and bad and ugly. And that's the case with Solomon. I mean, starts off really good, but to make some bad decisions that end up in an ugly end to his reign. Now, we're not going to get there today. We're talking about the good part, talking about his administrative prowess and his wisdom and how he surrounded himself with right people. And there was great loyalty and great production and great organization. There are times in any organization where the momentum is just taking care of itself. The famous leadership guru, John Maxwell, talks about organizations going through that time of great momentum. He calls it the big mo. And that's true of churches, that's true of businesses, that's true of nations. And that's what's happening here in 1 Kings 4. Solomon has instituted some very wise structure. And because of the wisdom of that structure and the peace of that nation and all the preparation that David had provided to Solomon, we're just in the heydays of Israel in this chapter. I want you to look at verse 20. We talked a bit about the actual officers of the land last episode. Verse 20, Judah and Israel were many, as the sand which is by the sea in multitude, eating and drinking and making merry. So this is a summary verse, really, or at least a sample of the kind of kingdom that Solomon had because of these decisions he's making, because of the structure that he has provided. We're finding that Solomon has created a system where everybody is winning. In fact, it says in verse 20 that Judah and Israel were many, as the sand by the sea of the multitude. So that's an idiom for a great multitude of people. And to the careful Bible reader, he will recognize that this was the promise that God made to Abraham when Abraham had no children. That not only will you have seed or children, but your seed will multiply as the sand of the seashore. So what are we finding? We're finding that Solomon is enjoying the promises that God made to his forefathers, the promise he made to Abraham in that Abrahamic covenant, the promise he made to his own dad, David, in the Davidic covenant, that he is enjoying the blessings and promises of God insofar that people are eating and drinking, people have enough, there's a time of prosperity, and they're making merry, they're satisfied. This is a great season of prosperity for God's people in the nation. But what have we learned kind of thematically in the Bible about times of prosperity? What we've learned is that prosperity sometimes can be our greatest enemy, because in prosperity, sometimes we tend to forget about God. We tend to forget and turn from God. I've said it this way: persecution has slain its thousands, but prosperity has slain its tens of thousands. Remember the church at Laodicea, where they were rich and increased with goods and had need of nothing, and yet they had forgotten about God. And sometimes that's what happens in prosperity, is we don't think we need God. And unfortunately, we're seeing a little bit of a crack in Solomon as Solomon becomes a little bit too self-sufficient, begins to ignore some clearly delineated Bible principles. We'll find that here later in this chapter. So look at verse 21. Solomon reigned over all kingdoms from the river unto the land of the Philistines, unto the border of Egypt. They brought presents and served Solomon all the days of his life. So great expansive geography, a great economy, a great longevity in his life. I mean, everything seems to be going okay. Verse 22, Solomon's provision for one day. Think about this. This is a big household. These are a lot of mouths to feed, a lot of staff in his government. Solomon's provision for one day was 30 measures of fine flour, 80 measures of meal, 10 fat oxen, this is per day, 20 oxen out of the pastures, and 100 sheep, beside harts or deer, roebucks, fallow deer, and fatted fowl. I mean, there were a lot of mouths to feed every single day. Now, where are you getting all of these supplies? Well, remember, last episode, we talked about how Solomon had organized his entire kingdom so that no part of the kingdom was overly taxed, so that each one of the 12 provinces would 1 month out of the year be responsible for supplying these supplies to the king's household. So everything seems to be going very, very well organizationally. He had dominion over all the region on this side of the river, from Tifsah even to Azah, over all the things on this side of the river, and he had peace on all sides round about him. So his kingdom is noted for its safety, for its peace. Judah and Israel dwelt safely. Every man, now this is interesting. I want you to listen to verse 25. Every man under his vine, under his own fig tree, from Dan, that's the northern part of the kingdom, unto Beersheba, that's the southern part of the kingdom, all the days of Solomon. So when the Bible talks about sitting under his vine and under his fig tree, that's a metaphor in the Bible, really an idiom in the Bible for being in a place of peace and prosperity. Even the prophets, Zechariah and others, use this phraseology to describe the peace that will come ultimately one day in a Messiah, in Jesus' kingdom. So sitting under your own vine, under your own fig tree, a time of prosperity. To sit under the fig tree meant to have a quiet place, an air-conditioned place, if you will, a place that had provision. A fig tree was kind of like the candy bar of the day. And to be able to study and read. Remember, Nathaniel was under the fig tree when Philip found him there in John chapter 1. So great imagery here in verse 25. Solomon had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots and 12,000 horsemen. Now, remember I said a moment ago that we see some signs of Solomon losing some spiritual self-awareness? Well, this is one of them, because the Bible specifically says in Deuteronomy chapter 17 that the king was not to multiply horses to himself. Why? Because he was to trust the Lord. It's not to say that he shouldn't have an able army. It's not to say that he shouldn't have things that he can enjoy. Stuff itself is not wrong, but when we place our confidence in stuff, our self-worth in stuff, our satisfaction in stuff, then there's a problem. So we're finding that Solomon is treading down a really dangerous road, isn't he? And those officers provided victual for King Solomon, and for all that came unto King Solomon's table, every man in his month, they lacked nothing. So because of Solomon's wisdom in organization, because of the process he had put in place, there was no lack. Everything is going well. The economy is buzzing and humming. Barley also and straw for the horses and dromedaries. A dromedary is a camel with one hump. Thought you'd want to know that. Brought they unto the place where the officers were, every man according to his charge. Now, I want you to listen carefully because we're going to read the last few verses now of chapter 4, and describe this high point in Solomon's ministry. And I think it's wise for us, even in our own lives, in our own churches, to stop and chronicle the things that God has done, to give proper praise and credit to the Lord, to remember what were those reasons why God was blessing and those things that God was doing, so that we're not just living in yesteryear, but we're learning from yesterday. And watch what it says in verse 29. And God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding exceeding much, and largeness of heart, intellectual capacity is what that would mean, even as the sand that is on the seashore. So he has this abundant supply, not just of external provisions, but of inward capacity, wisdom and intelligence and planning and all of it. And Solomon's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the children of the East country and all the wisdom of Egypt, these nations that were known for wisdom, like the Babylonians that had great historicity, the Persians, the Egyptians that had these huge libraries and all these years of science and math. And Solomon was smarter and wiser than all of them. It says in verse 31, he was wiser than all men. Some of the great wise men of the day, Ethan, the Ezrahite, and Heman, and Calcol, and Darda, the sons of Mahol. His fame was in all nations round about. So we don't know those people necessarily, but people back in those days did. They would be the smartest and wisest people of the day, and Solomon excelled every one of them. And he spake 3,000 proverbs. That's why we have the book of Proverbs. His songs were 1,005. So he's a songwriter. He's creative. He's scientific. He's spiritual. I mean, he is a Renaissance man in every sense of the word. He spake of trees, from the cedar that is in Lebanon, even unto the hyssop that springeth out of the wall. I mean, this guy knows agriculture. He knows horticulture. He knows military. He spake also of beasts. He knows zoology and of fowls and of creeping things and of fishes. I mean, Solomon has wisdom and knowledge in every sphere of life. He is just an amazing specimen. And it's all because of God, what God had done for him. And Solomon's attitude, I want to be the best possible leader I can be. So I want to have all the knowledge and all the wisdom and all the planning that I can have to be the man I must be to serve the people that don't belong to me, that belong to God. That's why we ought to be so keen on our education, by the way. That's why we ought to be keen in our study places, pastors and teachers. Why? Not so that we can appear smart, not so that we can somehow get some kind of an award for ourselves or think well about ourselves, but no, to have that knowledge, to have that wisdom so that we may better serve others. And that's what Solomon did. In fact, in verse 34, there came of all people to hear the wisdom of Solomon, from all kings of the earth, which had heard of his wisdom. I mean, when you're known for this kind of production, when you're known for this kind of success, when you're known for this kind of wisdom, people want to know more about it. Boy, when you are successful in what you know, in what you do, that's a natural magnet for people to want to find out how, and it's a great on-ramp, a great platform from which for Solomon to say to others, it was God. God deserves the glory for all of it because he is the one that enabled me in the beginning of it. So we'll stop there in verse 34. We'll come back to a brand new chapter next episode. Hope you'll join us for that. Until then, God bless you, my friends.